Breaking news coming from the UK this morning is that Q1 GDP has seen a record monthly fall of 5.8% in March as the coronavirus firms its grip on the economy. Juliana Olayinka is ready to tell us more about that. Good morning, Juliana. Give us a breakdown of the just released Q1 GDP numbers.
Good morning, Bissy. Yes, we've got the numbers in that economists had all been waiting for. The 3 months in Q1 from January to March has shown that the UK GDP has fallen by 2.2%. This is just a little bit less, actually, than what economists had predicted. I think the estimate was about 2.8%, and we've seemed to have fared much better than the Eurozone, which fell by about 3.8%. As you just said, I think what the main focus now is on is that March monthly fall. This is the largest monthly fall on record at 5.8%. And I think the reason why there is so much worry about March is because, of course, the Prime Minister didn't call for a lockdown until the 23rd of March. So there are only 8 days in which most non-essential shops were closed, particularly restaurants, because we know that the UK is a service-based economy. 80% of our GDP relies on these service industries. The fall seems to have come from all sectors, so not just services, also falls in manufacturing and construction. As soon as those figures were released at 9:30 this morning, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, released a statement, and he did say that indeed the UK is looking to head into a deep recession, possibly the deepest recession that we've ever seen. We also had warnings from the Bank of England saying that in Q2, GDP could fall as much as 25%, which of course would be the worst economic recession that we have seen in 300 years. So pretty worrying figures, but for Q1, not as bad as expected.
Now, the government has set out plans to restart England's housing market, which has been a deep freeze since the coronavirus lockdown. Of course, that comes as a welcome relief, right? But what are the plans?
It will come as a welcome release, particularly for the estimated 500,000 people that had to put buying a property on hold during the lockdown. It comes into effect immediately. So from today, we're expecting estate agents to open their doors. This also will be removal companies and anybody that is needed to move a home. Now, it was into a lockdown because, of course, you couldn't keep those social distancing measures. So any viewings of homes had to be done virtually online, and no property listing site could post newly listed properties. So that's all about to change today. An estimated £8.2 billion worth of properties have been put on hold. So many people wanted to buy a new home. They couldn't today. Of course, we know Prime Minister Boris Johnson is keen to get the wheels of the economy turning again, and this is simply one of those ways.
The Gambling Commission has asked betting firms to check in with online gamblers after an hour to try to protect vulnerable people during the coronavirus pandemic. Why has this become necessary?
Well, it's become necessary because Britain has a serious problem with addictive gamblers. Apparently 4 million people across the UK are addicted to gambling. And according to new reports released by YouGov, which is a pretty popular survey here in the UK, most gamblers have now changed their habits since the lockdown, and they are gambling more. They're spending more time on online gambling, so with casino, virtual slots, and they're spending more money. Now, the Gambling Commission has really tried to crack down on gambling sites over the past couple of months. And now, due to this YouGov data, they are asking these sites to put in more measures to make sure that they're helping people with addiction problems. So checking in on them, not physically checking in on them, but sending them messages online after about an hour, checking if they're okay, making sure that they're constantly interacting with them. Also, as well, what these gambling sites like to do is give a lot of bonuses to these gamblers to keep them online and to keep them hooked, and they're asking them to be scrapped. So that will come into force soon. And we've also already heard from the government's Department of Digital, Sport and Media, and they welcome these new measures.
And just before you go, Juliana, now the operator of British Cruise Lines, P&O Cruises in Canada, is planning to make hundreds of staff redundant with 450 jobs set to go and 20% pay cut till November for those who retain their jobs. It's all about COVID-19, right?
It is all about COVID-19, and we know that especially early on, all of those devastating stories about people literally being imprisoned on the sea because of the coronavirus. Since that time, since there have been so many rescues from international governments, the cruise shipping docks have literally been shut down. There are no cruise boats out at sea at the moment. And Carnival is by far one of the world's largest cruise operators in the UK. The cruising sector has about 60,000 jobs, and there are about 10,000 jobs under Carnival. Now, they said that these 450 jobs will have to go with immediate effect, and anybody who is fortunate enough to keep their job will have to take a pay cut. They're saying that this is something they'll have to do to maintain the industry. And they also said that they're not expecting cruise ships to start until the end of July. But that's only if, these governments will allow them to dock on their shores. And we've seen so many of them close their shipping lanes.
Thank you, Juliana. We'll see you again in the afternoon.
Thank you.